So for this first installment of my new series, Dawg Gets Nostalgic, I want to talk about one of the most formative TV shows of my childhood that was surprisingly not a cartoon. I think I was like most kids where if something wasn't animated, but this show was one of the first exceptions for me, and that show was Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a show that's been around for nearly 6 decades, and it didn't get interesting until the last 2. I'm kidding. The original series was a low-budget sci-fi TV show broadcasted by the BBC starting in 1963 until it was basically cancelled in 1989, only for it to come back stronger than ever in 2005, with a version of the series that's so popular and well-known today, dubbed the New Who by fans. Probably one of the most popular pieces of British TV alongside things like Sherlock or Love Island or The Boring Office. I was introduced to this series through the promotion of the 50th anniversary of the show on YouTube. It was called Doctor Who Week, something like that. 2 of my favorite channels at the time, How It Should Have Ended and Epic Rap Battles of History, both made videos using the characters. And I think the next time I went over to my grandma's house, I looked up the show and slowly became more engrossed in everything about it. I worked my way through all the available seasons, but sadly I never made it past season 8 because I didn't understand cable and I stopped caring. I used to love the Doctor. I used to be so intrigued by his character because I had never seen anything like it before. I remember creating a character in 5th grade that was basically me, but the Doctor. He was a time-traveling, space-traveling character that was basically just a ripoff. It was very interesting, and I have very fond memories of the stories I used to tell, or the mythos I created around him. It was really fun, and I even ordered a Doctor Who costume, which was just a fez and a bow tie, because
yeah, it's cool. Bow ties are cool.
It's a fez. I wear a fez now. Fezzes are cool.
I used to love this show, and I still do to a certain extent. My interest in the show comes back in waves, and now I feel like I want to talk about some of my favorite aspects of the show. So strap in because I have a lot to get into. Before getting into my favorite things, I have to lay out exactly what this show is because over the course of 60 years, it makes sense that things get a little complicated, especially because this f***er has the ability to travel through space and time. Anyway, so basically we follow the Doctor. Doctor Who, isn't that funny? Isn't that quirky? It's like the show or something. As he travels through time and space in his TARDIS, his time-traveling spaceship. TARDIS is actually an acronym, you know, it's very interesting. TARDIS is actually an acronym for time and relative dimension in space. Is that what it is? Hold on, I'm gonna look this up. I don't remember what the time and relative dimension in space. Yeah, he steals this. He steals this when he's young. It's not important. We're not getting into it. The Doctor travels in his TARDIS throughout space and time as he gets into wacky adventures trying to help those who need it alongside his companions. The Doctor is not a human though. The Doctor is actually an alien, and these aliens are called Time Lords, whose key trait is the fact that when they die, they can regenerate into a different person. Regeneration is how the series has been able to go on for so long, since every time the show nears the end of one Doctor's run, they'll be replaced with a fresh new one with a different take on the same character for the next couple seasons until they do it all again. The reveal of the next Doctor has become a highly anticipated event that creates interest in the show and foreshadows the direction the show is headed next. The other key cast members are the Doctor's companions, which are usually humans that tag along because he's a lonely son bitch and sort of needs that sense of humanity to keep him from making cold decisions. The messes they get into can range from silly fun adventures to dire world-ending events, and God, is that entertaining. So I've talked about the Doctors and his companions in general, but every season there's either a new Doctor or new companions, so I'm going to briefly go over each iteration, briefly in quotes. Sorry, whatever. It's my video, I can do what I want. The first season of the 2000s revival of Doctor Who was headed by Christopher Eccleston as the 9th Doctor and Billie Piper as Rose Tyler, his first companion of the new series. Eccleston's take on the Doctor was a lot more cold and less eccentric and silly as his previous incarnations. The Doctor was a lone war-torn survivor looking to save the innocent, having lost everything after fighting in the Time War, and being the last survivor of his race.
My planet's gone. Dead. I'm a Time Lord. I'm the last of the Time Lords. They're all gone.
Not to say that he wasn't silly or charming.
The doctor!
Hello!
This aspect of his character was usually put on the back burner as a sort of guise for the trauma he was hiding. After meeting Rose, a brash, young, and independent woman, the two grow to trust each other, and Rose falls in love with him. Rip Mickey, by the way, her boyfriend when she first meets the doctor, dude basically gets and forgotten about for his entire time on the show. Again, sorry bro. There's also Captain Jack Harkness, who would go on to have his own spin-off show, Torchwood, a handsome time-traveling con man who gets wrapped up in the Doctor's adventures and eventually becomes a fiercely loyal companion of his. And he's also bi king. We can't forget that. He's also a freaking bi king, and that is all. After some conflict between Eccleston and executives, Eccleston left the show and was blacklisted by the BBC. They did my boy so dirty, but his relationship with the show was slowly able to heal. Well, kinda. Eccleston was replaced by David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, generally considered to be the most recognizable and the Doctor, given that his iteration was one of the longest and most popular of the revival period thus far. He is very much the quintessential Doctor, exhibiting all the key traits that every fan loved and giving more memorable performances throughout his run. Over the course of the 4.5 years he played the Doctor, he had 11 companions, including but not limited to the returning Rose Tyler, Mickey Smith, and Jack Harkness, as well as Martha Jones, Donna and Wilfred Noble, and Sarah Jane Smith. David Tennant's run as the Doctor is beloved by fans and was responsible for re-establishing this revival, allowing the show to prosper even after his departure. The 11th Doctor was played by a young Matt Smith, the youngest Doctor at the age of 26. People were unsure of this new direction, especially with a new showrunner, but thankfully Matt Smith's tenure was just as liked and respected as his previous revival incarnations. His notable companions were a young Scottish redhead, Amy Pond,
The girl who waited, you've waited long enough.
her boyfriend Rory,
The last centurion.
his wife River Song,
Hello, sweetie.
and Clara Oswald.
The impossible girl.
The showrunner Stephen Moffat really liked giving his characters catching nicknames. The end of this iteration of the show was where I fell off and many others lost interest. I mainly stopped watching just because I didn't have BBC anymore. I don't know. But I've heard varying degrees of praise and criticism from the later seasons and Doctors. But again, I have no idea. I have yet to watch them. Another set of important characters in the show are the villains, and I think this calls for a Doctor Who iconic villain rapid fire round.
Here we go.
The Daleks are probably the most iconic Doctor Who villains of all time, basically robot salt and pepper shaker Nazis. The Cybermen are a close second to the Daleks and are robots who want to assimilate everyone into Cybermen, since they are the superior beings. The Weeping Angels are probably my favorite Doctor Who creatures because of how creepy and cool they are, and I will touch upon them more later. The Slitheen are the silliest aliens introduced in New Who, but are somehow still terrifying, despite being farty monsters with bug eyes. There's also Satan himself, pretty self-explanatory, another fat, farty alien, the Master, the other last Time Lord. The Time Lords, somehow not dead, but also still dead. Werewolves, vampires, short potato soldiers, rhino space cops, alien slaves, water, shadows, humans, past, present, and future.
Honestly, I could go on, but I don't want this video to be too long, and if you haven't been convinced to watch the show yet, hopefully I can convince you in this next segment. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over some of my favorite episodes from the first few seasons of the show in a last-ditch effort to get you to watch this thing. Also, trying my best not to spoil too much in case you want to check it out yourself, which I recommend doing. Without further ado, my favorite Doctor Who episodes and whatever I want to talk about. Pretty much every season premiere and finale I like, but I'll mainly talk about the season premiere since finales are so good because of the build-up to it. Also, I just want to say, I'm gonna limit it to the 2000s era of the show because there would be way too many episodes to talk about, including Matt Smith's run. Episode 1 of Season 1, Rose.
I'm the Doctor, by the way. What's your name?
Rose.
Nice to meet you, Rose. Run for your life.
Rose is a great introduction and start to the revival. You really get a feel for the dynamic of the Doctor and Rose as it's gradually solidified throughout the season. Just a really straightforward Doctor Who episode that gives you a good taste of what the show becomes later. Episode 6 of Season 1, Dalek. Dalek is the introduction to Doctor Who's most iconic villain, and it pulls it off so well. They managed to make a single Dalek so terrifying and threatening, which is important to note because this feeling gets lessened as the series goes on. This was just a unique episode that pulled off the concept really well and gave the Doctor and the world of the show more development. I really like how the episode compares the Doctor to the Dalek.
Kill yourself.
The Daleks must survive!
The Daleks have failed! Why don't you finish the job and make the Daleks extinct? Rid the universe of your filth! Why don't you just die?
You would make a good Dalek.
I really love what they pull off with this episode. Episode 9 and 10 of Season 1, The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. The two-parter episodes of Doctor Who are usually the better and more fleshed out stories, and this is definitely one of the best. The quote-unquote monster of these episodes is so memorable and frightening that it's referenced even during Tennant's tenure.
Are you my mummy? If you could concentrate.
This is also the introduction of Captain Jack Harkness as a companion. He's so fun and entertaining and only gets more interesting. Anyway, the whole two-parter rocks and has a really nice moment for the Doctor and co. right before the season winds down. Season 2 special, Christmas Invasion. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but Doctor Who has Christmas specials in between each season, and they sometimes fill in the blanks between the finale and the first episode of the next season. This is the first episode with David Tennant as the Doctor.
Did you miss me?
And is the first post-regeneration episode in the revival. Even though the Doctor's in and out of commission for the whole episode, it's really entertaining, and the fact that he isn't there to protect them raises the stakes for the episode. I like this episode, but it's also kind of a weird one.
I don't know!
But it's a solid introduction episode nonetheless. Episode 4 of Season 2, The Girl in the Fireplace. I think everybody loves this episode. It's one of the highest rated episodes outside of finales and specials, and for good reason. This episode is really intriguing and stands out in this season as the Doctor falls in love with a woman from another time. The writing is grounded and the humor is well done, and the story itself adds another layer of tragedy to Tennant's Doctor, foreshadowing a similar event in the finale. Motherfucker gets absolutely wasted and then rides a horse on a spaceship. 10 out of 10 episode. Could not be better. Episode 1 of Season 3, Smith and Jones. The start of another season with Tennant and a brand new companion. The way the Doctor and Martha play off each other feels natural and just works so well with Martha's intelligence, which bodes so well with the rest of the season.
Alright, you staying?
Till you talk to me properly, yes.
This episode also introduces, honestly, my favorite aliens of the series, the Jadoom, which are basically rhino space cops that talk like
Postcode photo, no crow blow.
It's very funny. I just find them really funny and memorable. I don't know, man. They're rhinos. They're rhino guys. Besides that, Smith and Jones starts season 3 off strong with a solid story and great character moments. And there's this one cool bit that I also do not want to spoil. Episodes 8 and 9 of season 3, Human Nature and the Family of Blood. This episode was originally a Doctor Who fanfiction story that was eventually adapted into an actual episode by the same writer. The Doctor turns himself into a human with Martha to look over him while they hide out at a private school in almost World War I England. The Doctor, now John Smith, only retains memories of his true identity as simply dreams. The way they depict John Smith as a completely different person despite looking the same as the Doctor is extremely well done given the fact that he's a strict asshole and a coward, but still has some heart. Martha's struggle to stick by his side is executed so well as she is the one who has to deal with the titular family of blood since the Doctor is indisposed, and the brutal ending really shows what this Doctor is all about. Great two-parter. Episode 10 of season 3, Blink. I f***ing love Blink. Everybody loves Blink. It is so good. This is the highest rated episode of the entire revival. The Weeping Angels are terrifying, and the fact that we don't follow the Doctor and Martha makes us genuinely worried for these characters. The use of the DVDs and having to rely on older technology adds to such a great creepy factor throughout the entire episode.
I am very, very sorry. It's up to you now.
And the use of time too is really intriguing and unique to these new monsters introduced in this episode, especially for a first-time viewer. Great standalone episode, one of the best, would highly recommend it. Episode 1 of season 4, Partners in Crime. I'm sorry, but every first episode of each new season is really solid. Not my fault, so sue me. The best part of this episode has to be Catherine Tate returning as Donna, introduced in the Christmas special, The Runaway Bride, and making her the companion for the season.
I just want a mate.
You just want to mate.
I just want a mate.
You're not mating with me, sunshine.
The Doctor and Donna have such great comedic chemistry, and the way she's reincorporated into the show is so silly but fits the character and the role she serves in Tennant's last season. Also, Wilfred! Love Wilfred, and Donna's family is probably my favorite out of all the companions. Episode 2 of Season 4, The Fires of Pompeii.
Originally, I talked for far too long about this very unimportant detail, and to sum it up, Peter Capaldi plays a random Roman in this episode.
Modern art!
Before he ends up playing the 12th Doctor in the later seasons. That's it.
Really good first episode with Donna as a companion that explores the morality of time traveling. What can and cannot be changed.
We're in Pompeii. And it's Volcano Day.
Also a bit of foreshadowing for one of the best specials coming up. Episode 8 and 9 of Season 4. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. This has got to be one of the best and most interesting two-parters of the series. Honestly, another terrifying episode that has a lot of twists and turns and a lot of layers that are dealt with by the end of the episode. Really impressive and just downright entertaining. Another one I would definitely recommend.
You just killed someone I like. That is not a safe place to stand. I'm the Doctor, and you're in the biggest library in the universe. Look me up.
Episode 10 of Season 4, Midnight. This episode is so interesting and depressing with how helpless everybody is. It just sort of ends with no answers, just fear. Another episode where the Doctor is separated from his companion, but this time, he is the only one in danger. Donna is just chilling out at a resort, blissfully unaware of how this group of people are encountering an unknown horror that even the Doctor can't fully comprehend.
What do you think it was?
No idea.
The way that everyone is defenseless, confused, and scared really works for this episode. By the end of it, you're just as clueless and traumatized by the experience as the Doctor is. I'm probably exaggerating, but it's that good and it's a standout episode. The Water of Mars special. Another standout episode. This time, it's a special after the season has already concluded and the Doctor's all on his own, sort of aimless. He winds up in the middle of a space station on Mars that is destined for tragedy and he has to just let things happen despite his urge to help. This is the conundrum and moral quandary of being a Time Lord. I think the episode is really good overall, with an interesting antagonist being the water. Very crazy stuff. But what I love so much is the Doctor's turn from the tragic, lonely Time Lord to the pseudo-god that is
Time Lord victorious.
honestly my favorite part of the end of Tennant's run. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but man, the ending is such a great moment. Could not recommend more. Episode 1 of Season 5, The 11th Hour. This is the episode where I decided to cut my video off at, since it's the first episode with the 11th Doctor, who takes the series into the 2010s, but I feel like I have less vivid memories of the episodes past this point. That being said, another new actor nailing the new Regeneration episode. If anything, I think I prefer this one to Tennant's. Matt Smith really knew what he wanted his Doctor to be, and it's endlessly entertaining and engaging. Very silly episode, like with the fish fingers and custard, and how they beat the villain, but also very impactful, and establishes everything it needs to for the rest of the season with the crack and Amy and all that. And you can't forget the iconic speech she gives towards the end of the episode.
Hello, I'm the Doctor. Basically, run.
Really solidifying him as the Doctor for this new iteration.
Nobody panic.
Originally, I planned on talking about the current state of the show and all the criticism surrounding it, but this video is already getting a bit long, and honestly, I'm not an expert, so if you're interested, I recommend checking out JX's video about the newer seasons. It's very long, it's 5 hours, but if that isn't a testament to how dedicated the fan base of this show is, I don't know what is. I still haven't watched it entirely yet, but it's a great video nonetheless. Highly recommend seeing that if you are interested in the current state of the show and the discussion around it. Semi-breaking news, as I was working on this video, Ncuti Gatwa was announced as the 14th Doctor. He will be the first non-white male actor to play the Doctor, and head showrunner of the first 4 seasons of the revival, Russell T Davies, who will be returning to work on his seasons. Personally, I'm excited and I'm looking forward to the future of the show, but God, have there been some incredibly big brain takes on this casting decision. Critics of Doctor Who cannot find a better criticism than "it woke show woke because woman, and now show woke again because black person. It really does feel like people just looked at his name, realized they couldn't pronounce it, and then went on to cry about how Doctor Who was just being woke since they cast a black guy. Very cool stuff, guys. Very cool. Anyway, I'm excited, and I just wanted to bring that up since it happened recently, and it's pretty hype. Anyway, you've made it to the end of the video. Wasn't that a silly romp through the 2000s era of Doctor Who? I thought it was fun. Doctor Who isn't a perfect series by any means though, but I think if you like what the show excels at, then that's all that really matters. Doctor Who has a wonderfully complex catalog of stories that they've told, and lovable characters, and I think that's why I love the series. I love the variety of things that this one show is able to accomplish and also maintain such a loyal fan base over 60 years. It also manages to be a show that keeps on changing and shaking things up over that long period, and I think that's an incredible feat. I don't think I'll ever lose my love for this silly little British sci-fi show, and I hope it just gets better. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, why not freaking like and subscribe, perhaps? Just a suggestion, not a threat or anything, you know. I'm not gonna come to your house or, you know, make you subscribe or something. There are 5 more planned videos in this series, and they're coming soon, so you don't want to miss it. It was nice having you here. Bye!